And so I'll start with James Gladstone, who really is the reason that the Rams overhauled their draft efforts after the 2022 season and really nailed the last two draft classes, 10 starters between two of those draft classes, and finalists each year for Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's just been astounding to watch James sort of traffic control and strategize them through all of these new processes that they've implemented with Les Snead at the helm, of course. But James Gladstone has quietly been Les Snead's right-hand man for many years, from humble beginnings as one of Les Snead's children's high school coaches that he overheard talking about scheme to one of his kids and thought, I have to hire that guy. So really humble beginnings for James Gladstone, but no surprise to me to see that he's one of the finalists.
Jordan, when we're talking about some of the issue, or I guess some of the difficulties, some of the challenges that the Rams had previous years because of not having that first round pick for several years, or a lack of picks for several years, some of this because of trades that have been worth it, but it still brings some challenges when it comes to draft time. Tell us a little bit about how Les Snead and company, James Gladstone, everybody was even able to navigate their way through those years and still win a decent amount of football games for the majority.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think a big part of that is the collaboration between James, between Les Snead, and between Sean McVay. And I think that's what all of these three candidates that we're going to discuss today have in common, is they are quite used to and accustomed to working with the football side and collaborating to match the best players that they can with the scheme and with the demand and expectation and specifically the onboarding and development process that the coach has in place. One of the reasons why the Rams were able to attune their scouting and draft process with a fine-tooth comb and then really modernize it and make it, in my opinion, because I saw it up close and because the results speak for themselves, one of the best processes that there is right now in the NFL, is because they talked through every facet of it, every element of it with Sean, and they kind of attune different characteristics or different traits for players that they would be looking for that match certain demands and qualifications that Sean McVay himself demands within his scheme and within the structure and within the defensive scheme and within that structure as well. They really have been interested in as well in identifying intangible traits, and they have an entire methodology that's outlined in that series over on theathletic.com about how they find Rams, really, how they find people who they call Rams, who have those captain qualities, who have the personality assessments and the IQ and the EQ that they demand in their building, because they understand that they're going to have to contribute immediately, especially when they were doing the picks for players trades where complementary players had to come in. They had to be middle round picks who could play, because you had to complement and supplement those areas of the roster. And then when they overhauled their roster, those players really had to come in and play because there was nobody left. So it was really interesting to watch how they maximize not just those physical characteristics, but understanding that when you get into the middle and late rounds of the draft, you're actually not going to be able to have all the physical characteristics you want. So how do you maximize out the intangible qualities that actually elevate players at this level, and those traits that can help sort of mask over some of the physical deficiencies?
Jordan, here they've decided that it's going to be coach-centric. So Liam Cohen is pretty much the one who will be deciding all things, but obviously in conjunction with the new general manager, in conjunction with the EVP of football operations, Tony Baselli. Since you are so close to the Rams, how does it work as far as Les Snead, Sean McVay? We know Sean McVay has a big personality, but how does that work as far as if they disagree?
Well, they fight. And I think it's healthy, honestly. And I think that that's something that people in some organizations are scared of. But like I said, those three candidates, especially, we talked about this with Ian Cunningham at length as well on the play callers. And I know if you're in Kyle Shanahan's building and you're Josh Williams, you're fighting too. And so it's one of those things where none of these guys are afraid to have those direct and honest conversations. There's a saying in the Rams building, Raheem Morris kind of coined it a couple of years ago, where he's like, I'm with you when you're right. Basically, if you have an argument and you can back that argument up with tangible and qualified data and analysis, you're going to be listened to. And I think that is one of the things that has made Les and Sean such a good fit together, is they listen to each other, and there is no like struggle over power. There is no hierarchical ranking within that building. I think a dangerous thing for the Jaguars to do and for Liam Cohen to do would be to set that tone immediately with any of these three candidates if he does that, because those guys all are entering this process with the intent to collaborate and the practice of collaboration in their respective buildings. And so I think that is ultimately would be a positive and a value add because that's an honest and functional conflict that can really get a lot of really interesting new and progressive ideas done and can really make positive change in a building that I think needs it.
Jordan, before we let you go, I want to kind of connect all of these. And when we talk about some similarities of what they've had to deal with in the organizations they have been with at times. And I've talked a little bit on here about sometimes when you want to build something and to form a consistent winning product, you do have to make some painful decisions. You have to let go of players you have attachments to and maybe focus on what's the boring side of things when it comes to the offensive line and things like that sometimes. But how do you feel the reaction has been in each of those organizations and when it had to come to some of those decisions and just kind of trusting the general manager in that sense?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think all three of this, that's a great question. You guys this is awesome. I'll come back anytime.
I was going to say, we're going to need you back anyways, Jordan. We could do it in person next week too at the Combine. It's all good. No worries.
Why aren't you guys running the team?
We ask it a lot. Don't worry. You're good.
So I really think that these three particularly, and you see it a lot with some of these ascending coaches too, not just from the McVay and Shannon tree, but the Ben Johnsons of the world, Dan Campbell as well, even though he's a more tenured coach. Mike Tomlin has always had this, people who thrive in discomfort because they understand that it's a vessel to carry them into the next solution. And I think that is a trademark of all three of these guys is the discomfort element or the perception element, or it's really not something that matters. Les Snead always says looking at things through a microscope and a telescope at the same time is one of the real gifts that someone needs to possess in order to succeed and become a tenured general manager as he has, when Ian worked for Ozzie and the Ravens and when he worked for Howie Roseman, Josh working for John Lynch for so long. It is one of those skills and those gifts that you have to develop over time is understanding that sometimes the short-term pain or the short-term discomfort really only serves as a vessel into a long-term solution. I think those guys, all three of them, and I know all three of them, I think they're all really comfortable in that place and having the buy-in and having the personalities to galvanize people, to bring people along with them. And again, and I want to stress this, and I don't know if Shad is listening to this show or not, but
better be.
I do want to stress this, the collaboration, not someone being in charge of others, having the collaboration between coach and front office, to me is absolutely crucial.
Hey, Mia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.